This is an emergency Misinformation Watch episode in light of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm sorry to say that some people have made a lot of money as a direct result of this assassination. In crypto, online, on social media, all powered, of course, by AI. And some of these people who made a lot of money and profited from this assassination include the Trump family. Oh yes, let's get after it.
You are listening to CEO.
Hey everyone, welcome to this new emergency episode, something that I've never done before, and certainly it created a bit of an editorial mess at our end, and I apologize for that, because those who follow us for quite a long time, you know that every Monday we actually produce a new episode. And we had one episode ready with a phenomenal guest, a best-selling author, somebody who was involved at the very highest level in investigating police corruption here in the UK. But we decided to move that episode on Monday, the 22nd of September, of course, in light of this whole horrible situation with Charlie Kirk and, of course, the aftermath of divisive content, misinformation, threats, and we'll go deeper into that as we move forward with this episode. And the thing that really, as I tend to do from the point of view of AI, data, etc., I always look at the areas that nobody's talking about. It's the why question. Who is benefiting from all that riled up misinformation? Because it's just obvious, it's complete utter nonsense, isn't it? Yet it's there, it's being done again and again and again. Now, before I carry on, for those who don't know who I am a tech entrepreneur who's been involved in AI for a very long time, since 2002, and specifically AI recommendation systems. So my previous company, which was an ad network back in 2004, we basically built AI recommendation systems like the ones that you see in social media, e-commerce, even in Netflix. And pretty much that is the core engine behind all social media today, and indeed misinformation. And I'm going to provide you with some clips of the previous guests and experts that basically highlighted to all of us how this misinformation machine is done by design. This is not some people who thought they heard something and they're being genuine about it. Oh no, there's no genuine about misinformation. This is all part of a campaign. Because, and again, I'm not here to talk about the politics. This is not a political show. I think there's enough been done and talked about in terms of, what Charlie Kirk is all about. Of course, I don't agree with any of the stuff that he used to say. I don't agree with the idea that people should be killing other people. I mean, this is ridiculous and it's disgusting. We should not do that. I mean, we can't call ourselves a civilized humanity if people going out there killing each other. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not interested in that. So I condemn it, and I think it's a despicable act regardless. And what happened soon after the news came out about this assassination? If you look at the news at the time, all of the reasonable people on all political divides, the conservatives, liberals, whatever, they went out there and condemned this assassination, and rightly so. Nobody was accusing anybody of anything. It was just a pretty united front to say that, look, whatever he said doesn't matter. You do not assassinate people. That was the point of freedom of speech, right? This is just wrong. It was condemned. Great. And you would think, okay, in a normal world, in a normal period, that would have been that, and that's it. And then, of course, we would be following the news about, the motives behind the shooter, and of course, they went on a major manhunt, and it was a complete mess as well. Interestingly, because it started with misinformation, where Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, for some reason decided to tweet that they caught the perpetrator, even though they did not. And that kind of created a whole mess of its own right. So, and legal mess as well, by the way. I mean, it was ridiculous. But in order to put things into context, let's go back to what happened in the UK in 2024. Now, for those who don't live in the UK, we had major far-right riots in 2024, summer 2024, following the murder of 3 young girls by a perpetrator. And in fact, Amnesty International done a comprehensive research analyzing how misinformation was the key cause of this riot. And in fact, how X and Elon Musk played a big role in that. And you'll be shocked the similarities that we see with the same behavior today. We have published this report on the CEO Retort Journal online, and I want to go over some of the key areas that they've highlighted. The title is Amnesty International Revealed How X Created a Staggering Amplification of Hate During the 2024 Riots. So this report was actually published on August 14th, 2025. And the head of this research Pat DeBrun actually joined me on the podcast. I'm going to share a few clips of the things that he said about what they found. And the key area that I really wanted to highlight in this report is this. Within hours of the murder of 3 young girls and attempted murder of 10 others by 17-year-old Axel Rodocabana, incendiary posts by far-right influencers went viral on X. Surprise, surprise. And we've seen exactly the same thing post-Charlie Kirk assassination. Within 24 hours, posts falsely claiming the attacker was Muslim, which is not true, he's Christian, a refugee and or migrant who had arrived by boat, which is also not true. The guy is British. He was born and raised in the UK, right? And this claim had reached an estimated 27 million impressions within 24 hours, okay? Amnesty UK's analysis of the recommender system and the removal of safeguards at X demonstrate that it is set up to amplify this type of harmful content and that there are few safeguards to prevent it from happening in the first place. The net result was a staggering amplification of hate speech, anti-migrant sentiment, and of course, the likes of Andrew Tate, a notorious online influencer, posted video falsely claiming that the attacker was an undocumented migrant who arrived on a boat, whilst Elon Musk, of course, claimed that civil war was inevitable. Oh, guess what? He's done exactly the same thing here in the UK. We had a massive, those who don't live in the UK probably heard this in the news, that there was a massive demonstration. I suppose you can call it a far-right demonstration, or at least a demonstration influenced by the far-right movement this weekend in London. And Elon Musk decided to turn up, of course, virtually. He was basically a guest speaker online. And it's the same sort of thing. Oh, there's civil war, or that if you don't stop them, I don't know who them is, oh, they'll come to you and they'll kill you. So you better fight for your life, or something along these lines. I'm paraphrasing, but it was the same kind of rhetoric. And interestingly, according to this report as well, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson, the guy that organized the demonstrations this weekend, the guy that Elon Musk decided to align his brand with, a guy who is literally a convicted criminal multiple times. Again, I'm not going to waste my time and your time talking about him. You can look him up if you want. But this is basically, again, as I always like to say, it's the same people, right? But anyway, this guy posts on X, including claims such as that there being more evidence to suggest Islam is a mental health issue rather than a religion of peace. And that received over 580 million views in the 2 weeks following the Southport attack of these 3 young girls, which is an unprecedented reach of figure banned on most mainstream platforms for breaching hate speech rules. The same people, the same sort of thing happened post the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, the one thing I really want to talk to you a little bit very quickly about in terms of how recommendation systems work, AI recommendation systems. Now, there are 3 principles. And in fact, I invite you to watch my horrendously old video, which I didn't say horrendous video as well, that I published. I think it was either the first or the second ever video I published on this very YouTube channel. That's way before the podcast was even in my mind. But I basically talked about how AI is used to control your mind, because this is what AI can do. I always tell people, I've been saying this for years, AI can control people's behaviors and can change people's behaviors without them even knowing. And I always laugh at people that kind of challenge me and say, Tim, you can't change my mind. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can. Why do you think I keep on going on about regulation, that we need to regulate these things? Because, somebody like me can literally just go out there and decide, you know what, I want to create AI algorithms to control people's minds into whatever way I want. And no one can stop me. I literally told them, when I advised the previous government, I literally told them, please regulate me. You need to regulate me and many people like me, because the only reason I'm not doing it, because I just choose not to. Imagine that, yeah? People with that capability, nothing can stop them. And nothing, in fact, is stopping them. Here we are. We've got the evidence. And I spoke at that time in terms of how AI recommendation systems work. And these are the key principles, 3 principles that have to effectively work in unison for the whole thing to work. It's effectively trying to create a whirlpool where the user basically get dragged slowly deeper and deeper and deeper into the platform. So the number 1 rule, of course, is about recommending your stuff, be it a product, an ad, whatever it is to basically try to sell you something, to make sure that you buy more, help the company make more. But in order to achieve that, we have to focus on the second thing, and that's understanding your sentiment, how you feel, the things that make you tick. So therefore, we would start recommending content, products that basically would encourage you to stay for a little bit longer on the platform, because the longer you stay, the more you discover the more you discover, the more you pay, right? This is how it works. But the third element of AI recommendation system that, again, not many people talk about, but this is actually, if you like, for me at least, I would say, is the creme de la creme of all user information. And that's profiling you, understanding your behavior, and being able then to feed that back to the products or services that we may have, and how we kind of use that to push that product back at you. But even now, of course, with AI, and we've seen that, in fact, in 2016 with Cambridge Analytica, where you didn't really have to use crazy, powerful AI to achieve that. We could do that, like I said, for many, many years, using algorithms to not only profile you and profile your behavior, psychographic metrics, but actually change your behavior, to actually make you change the decisions in such a way so that then we can start feeding you the things that we want to feed you, and then start recommending the content. And it's just literally that continuous cycle. Those three things basically feed one another, and it literally creates, as I just like to describe, a whirlpool that just pulls you deeper and deeper into the platform. This is why I've been saying, my friends, I've been saying this for a long time. On this video that I published in August 2024, I said that this whole idea of mixing politics with AI is a disaster. This is going to be bad. And also, on this video, post the election of Donald Trump, I said, this is what AI is going to look like under the Trump administration. And here we have it. I'm not here to say I told you so. I'm simply trying to demonstrate that a lot of the experts, including not just myself, but all of the guests that I bring in here, are not the sort of experts that are being interviewed. Why? I suppose because we're not clickbaity enough. But the point that I'm trying to highlight is that everything that you see in front of you today is all about benefiting the people who own these platforms rather than you. So if you get riled up online, somebody's annoying you for political reasons or whatever, well, guess what? You're not benefiting from that, are you? They're benefiting from people getting all riled up online, because what happens? You stay longer on these platforms. The AI recommendation system basically keep on feeding it again and again and again. And Amnesty International demonstrated this with their research. They went through the code of X because it's open source. That's one thing I have to say. I have to commend Elon Musk for releasing that code, I suppose. But they went through the code and they basically found that it's all by design. And Pat DeBrun, who's the head of this research and the head of Amnesty International's department called Big Tech Accountability, said this.
It was quite clear to most observers that there was the social media had played a very prominent role, that X had played a prominent role. But we wanted to try and prove that. We wanted to look under the hood, look at the tech, and ask, what about X's design and policy choices may have contributed to the spread of this misinformation? So we undertook a technical analysis of X's recommender algorithm, so all of the publicly available source code we could find, and really analyzed it from a human rights perspective to really understand what makes certain content go viral and why. And what we found were systematic design choices that favored kind of contentious engagement, let's say, so kind of argument and controversial content to spread at speed. This is a business model in the broadest terms that's shared by a lot of social media companies. But we were able to see that it's particularly prominent here on X. And we combined that analysis with a review of all of the policy choices enacted over the past couple of years. So since Elon Musk's takeover in 2022, he has undertaken a lot of measures to change how the company works and how the platform works. That has included firing most of the trust and safety team who's responsible for stopping the spread of harmful content, many of their content moderators who are there to spot that content and take action whenever they do see it. He changed the speech policies to enable and allow more abusive and harmful kind of threatening speech where that would have been previously prohibited. And also he reinstated accounts that had previously been banned for hate speech, including Andrew Tate and Tommy Robinson. So when we looked at this in totality, we were able to see that this combination of kind of design, the algorithmic design of the platform, and these policy choices really created this perfect storm for the amplification and spread like wildfire of harmful, racist misinformation, and that enabled X to play such a prominent role in the wake of the Southport attacks and in the riots that ensued.
Not to mention, of course, my other guest, Emma Monk, who came here twice already, and she was actually a guest in my first episode of Misinformation Watch, where she highlighted quite specifically that what these misinformation posts tend to do, they basically try to push this emotional response rather than a logical response, because logic doesn't sell, apparently, right? And this is not just by social media, by the way. The media are absolutely complicit in this, no doubt about that. And this is what she had to say.
Fear and anger, it it sells.
Yeah.
It sells clicks. It sells newspapers, and yeah, to hell with actual reality and the people who are suffering from this.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend recently who was utterly horrified. I think it was during the riots last summer, that she said friends of hers that she knew from the sort of had school gates, in a nice leafy part of Surrey, had got involved in some of the protests outside a travel lodge near where they lived that was housing migrants. They were housing asylum seeking families. There were kids there. She said, these are people I have sat across dinner tables with, who my kids have socialized with, who up until then I'd never thought that they would have these kinds of views. And she said, and they were there and they were throwing rotten food over the boundary of the hotel into the playground where asylum seeking kids were.
They actually told you that? Like, did they tell you that was some kind of pride or something?
They told her that, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Because they didn't want asylum seekers being kept in a hotel near where they lived. And she was there going, these are kids. Like, you were throwing rotten food into a playground because there are kids there. But they had become so radicalized against any kind of asylum seekers and the idea that they were, destroying their community and that they were coming there to, assault their children or whatever, that they just lost all sense of, actually, if there are kids in this hotel, then maybe that's not like that's not quite where I should be at. And that is media driven. It's people
100%.
didn't get this way by their lived experience. The kids in that hotel were not hurting anybody. But the media has pushed and pushed and pushed this narrative that asylum seekers are dangerous, that immigrants are the problem, that's why you can't get on the housing ladder or get your child into school or get a GP's appointment, that it's all down to immigration. And it's not. It's down to years of underinvestment in our communities, in our public services. And immigrants have become the new scapegoat. It used to be Europe. We'd blame Europe for the reason why your town in the north wasn't functioning like it used to be. But we can't really blame Europe anymore.
And this is what I mean in terms of not allowing yourself to be riled up by these people, because that's all by design. So every time you argue with people online or you get all annoyed, you feel you want to attack somebody, ask yourself, how does that benefit you? Right? So the key thing here is for you to step back a little bit and just think. Okay? Notice that I'm not talking about the politics here. Forget the politics, because that's not, again, it's all theater that literally serves nobody. And in fact, it even has fatal consequences, as we have seen with Charlie Kirk. And again, we've seen this before. Other people, other political commentators and senators have been assassinated. And again, no one was talking about it very much, apparently, because they're the liberals. Who cares about the liberals, apparently, right? I mean, it's terrible. It's horrendous. This is not what humanity is about, is it? But this is what they want. This is what they want. And finally, Rachel Donald, the investigative journalist who goes after corruption in the energy market and beyond, also made this very interesting point when it comes to spreading of misinformation and how the media try to manipulate you.
I don't think that mainstream media is a source of misinformation. I think that it's not quite correct to say that, a kind of headline which is serving its purpose of like grabbing attention is feeding misinformation. You have to remember that like the media is held to an incredibly high standard with regards to laws and regulations and libel suits and all of this kind of thing. And I think part of kind of the stranglehold of like the fear of being wrong when you have a bunch of non-experts writing about expert stuff is that what actually happened is they sort of developed this like two-sided manner when reporting on science, which was like, okay, this person says that, but this person says that. And that kind of gets them off the hook and ensures that they can't get done for bias, essentially. And then that creates the possibility of misinformation because you can then begin to decontextualize a report. And I think probably that is part of the answer to your question. Like we live in a hugely decontextualized world. And I think that is reflective of the neoliberal economic system, which has sought to sort of separate us and cut ties and create a dog-eat-dog world where individuals rule supreme, which is completely ecologically blind and misinformed. Like we all exist as interdependent beings, whether socially, politically, environmentally, ecologically, etc. But because of the amount of information that's out there now, it's impossible to consume all of it. It's impossible to keep up. And so I think part of what people do is to survive is like decontextualize in a sense. And then also because media thinks of itself as it being kind of impossible to properly contextualize each story, then we've kind of fallen into a glut where the real bias isn't what is being said, but is what is being not said. And I think that's kind of the tragedy of the commons here, that the web, the social and political and economic web is still there, but it's been hidden essentially in a hall of mirrors, or it's been, we've been made blind to it. And that's why you have case after case after case after case of corruption happening. And each time it's kind of treated as like a new thing. Like I remember thinking about this a few years ago when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister in the UK, and like the news cycle was just constant outrage. And I was like, this is ridiculous. What a stupid way to report on this. Like, this is what he does. He does illegal things and he says stupid things. And the more that we treat each instance as an opportunity for outrage, the more that we decontextualize it. This is actually his normal behavior. And because outrage adds an element of like, oh, it shouldn't be this way. No, it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way. So stop being outraged. Stop kind of wasting time with this emotional response and start contextualizing that this is a very deliberate manner of governing that he is weaponizing here. And you need to connect all the dots. I mean, and he even said it, right? So, yeah, I think contextualizing is very important to understanding why the world is in crisis and what to do about it.
So I hope you see the picture here. This is all by design. And like I said, I'm not trying to kind of plug the podcast here, but this is what this podcast is about. I'm trying to get all these amazing people out of the shadows of clickbait so that we can all learn about what's going on around us. Because at the end of the day, people, if we don't react in the opposing way that would stop these platforms and these people behind these platforms being more responsible, they'll just carry on doing it. Like I said, this has basically happened the same way in the UK a year ago, following the horrible murders of these 3 young girls. It's the same people. And I made that very same point on the episode that I published in November 2024, post the election of Donald Trump, that I said that it's the same people that created all the far right, far left divisions that we have in the UK are the same people who are behind Project 2025. And they're the same people that are going to be creating the same problems that we have here in the UK. They're just going to exacerbate it further in the United States. And here we are. Okay. Not because I'm a genius, it's just because history repeats itself. We humans aren't very good at learning from history, it seems, even very recent history. So I'm hoping that at least with this, we can start understanding together that we are all being manipulated. We are all being pushed to the point of violence in a way that basically benefits nobody other than the very same people at the top that are pushing these algorithms at you and this misinformation. So, speaking of which, let's go through a list, very interesting list of how people made money from the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And this article, I have to say, it actually did upset me. I'm not surprised, but I thought it was ridiculous. Crypto traders profit from Charlie Kirk murder as debate swirls over ethical lines. This was published on September 11th. So basically, literally a day after the assassination. Meme coin creators and traders profited more than $2 million following the assassination of the right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk on Wednesday. It has split the meme coin frenzy segment of crypto community, with one side calling those gaining from his death sickening, while others shrug it at the long line of morality questionable token traders have capitalized on. So the report talks about 4 meme coins that were created and soared to multi-million, with the largest peaking at 36 million market cap. Deployers of these tokens netted more than $563,000 in rewards, royalties paid to the creators of the tokens in less than 24 hours. According to data from Solana meme coin launchpad Pump.fund, the top 5 traders of each token have realized profits over $1.6 million, according to Dex Screener. I mean, you know, I say on LinkedIn quite a lot that basically we're living in a world of where technology is not about innovation anymore. There's just no morality. In fact, I've got a whole article about it on the CEO Retort Journal. You can see in the description below. But is that what we call innovation? This is what Dr. Jeffrey Funk and I talked about in our last week's episode in terms of, you know, where are we going with this? It's really horrendous. I mean, I find this absolutely abhorrent. But that's the world that we live in today. Like I said, forget AI utopia. This has nothing to do with AI utopia anymore. And the other article that highlights the other beneficiaries of this assassination, titled Charlie Kirk Assassination Gun Stock, oh God, Gun Stocks Jump, Trump Media Trends After President Condemns Heinous Killing. 31-year-old conservative activist was shot dead by an unidentified gunman while speaking at a Utah college event. Gun stocks rose while Trump media and technology group DJT trended on stock tweets late Wednesday following the assassination of conservative activist and Donald Trump ally Charlie Kirk at a Utah college event. So they go through basically all of the event in terms of what happened, which probably you guys already heard a million times in the news. But in markets, investors piled into firearm stocks on expectations of heightened gun purchases for self-defense. Similar spikes were observed after assassination attempts on Trump himself during his presidential campaign last year. Historically, arms makers' shares often see short-term gains after politically charged incidents that raise both security concerns and calls for potential restrictions on gun ownership. I mean, not that I'm trying to be conspiratorial, but I feel, you know, if you look at certain MAGA supporters and MAGA politicians that went straight away condemning the Democrats and blaming the Democrats, even some, I can't remember, I've seen, was it Megyn Kelly recently that started blaming Obama? Which is like, okay, I mean, maybe we should ask them, do they have stocks in these gun companies? I have no idea, but I just find it interesting. Meanwhile, Trump Media, DJT, was among the platform's most active tickers, with sentiment sliding to extremely bearish as users shared condolences and heated political commentary. I suppose the same thing would have been in all other social media platforms as well. So again, like I said earlier, with the AI recommendation systems, it's about keeping you in so that they can sell you as much stuff as possible. In this case, of course, it's ads. So all of these platforms, including Donald Trump's platforms, have made a lot of money from this situation. It will be interesting to see if they're going to donate any of that money to the family of Charlie Kirk. We shall see. At the time of the recording of this episode, I haven't seen any news about that. But that just shows the world that we live in today. Speaking of social media, well, I was happy to see that Vox decided to also publish a very similar report that I just talked to you about from Amnesty International about how social media is the worst place to be right now. And they highlighted the fact that the whole spread of misinformation is, again, by design, as we already talked about. But interestingly, the other thing that we've seen is that how this horrible video of the assassination actually just went viral, and it was accessible by children, apparently. Again, I made sure that I do not see it because I don't like seeing these sort of videos, and, you know, certainly my kids, did not see any of that stuff. But again, it seems like, despite the fact, certainly in the UK, we have the so-called the Online Safety Act, where it bans inappropriate content from being shown to children. But apparently, I've seen in the news that some children manage to see it anyway, especially on TikTok. So, wow, okay, so is that by accident? I don't know. I'll let you decide that one. I just find it very convenient that a video like that went viral because, again, the beneficiary are the social media platforms. And as Vox highlighted here, that this is by design. While images of graphic violence have always spread online, users once had to search them out, right? I remember the good old days. I say good old days, that's probably within the last 10 years. Basically, if you wanted to see an image or a video like that, you would literally have to put a lot of effort to search for these images and videos of assassinations and murders, which is horrible. But now that's not the case. It just literally pops up because they want you to see it. The AI recommendation systems, what did I say earlier? They keep on pushing the content because they want you to see the content so they can stay on the platform for as long as possible. The whirlpool, yes? This is it. While images of graphic violence have always spread online, users had to search them out. But more recently, social media companies have made them inescapable as they've backed away from all of the content moderation, sometimes in the name of so-called freedom of speech. And again, Pat de Bruin had a lot to say about that because Amnesty International are the experts of freedom of speech on an international level and the biggest advocates of freedom of speech. And they say that this is not freedom of speech. This has nothing to do with freedom of speech. And in fact, this is what Pat said about it.
There are a lot of people who claim to be defenders and protectors of free speech who are enacting very severe harms and very politicized agendas under the guise of free speech. But
yes,
to be absolutely clear, from an international human rights perspective, based on human rights law, and that is what matters when we're talking about freedom of speech, all human rights must be balanced. There is no such thing as absolute freedom of speech. We do not have a right to abuse, harass, harm, and incite violence against anyone that we choose to, because they also have protections under international human rights law and standards. And therefore, all rights are qualified. There's no such thing as absolute freedom of speech. And in order for freedom of speech to be enabled for everyone, for a migrant or a Muslim to have their freedom of speech protected and respected, they also need to be protected from this kind of harmful, abusive, harassing behavior and materials. And companies, social media companies in particular, have a responsibility to ensure that appropriate balance is struck. And with these changes that Elon Musk has initiated, he's turned very far away from that approach, that appropriate approach to freedom of speech. And on that point, I also want to add something, because soon after Musk's takeover, we allude to this in the research, they announced a new policy of freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. And in theory, this sounded potentially interesting, that they would allow content to remain on the platform, even if it was harmful, but they would ensure it would not be amplified. Now, it's an interesting proposition from a human rights perspective, because arguably it goes towards finding that balance. But what we found in this case is that it absolutely did not transpire. And when we looked at the algorithm, actually, we could not find any evidence that there are any tools within it to assess the potential for harm of a piece of content before making it go viral. All they're looking at is whether it is likely to fuel engagement.
Yes.
So actually, what was said publicly about the policy and what was under the hood of the algorithm do not match up. And this was borne out in reality. We saw hateful misinformation, racist hate speech from prominent far-right figures and from less prominent accounts going viral, spreading like wildfire, and clearly being algorithmically amplified. So whatever alleged safeguards exist, we could find no evidence of them, and they didn't have much, if any, impact in practice.
There you go. But going back to Vox's article, what they've highlighted that the videos of Kirk's assassination were viewed more than 11 million times from the moment Kirk was shot until he died 2 hours later. So literally within the first 2 hours since his assassination. I mean, it's crazy, man. Sometimes people watch them accidentally, like on X, which autoplays the videos when you scroll down them. Still, countless people were watching the clips, which signaled the algorithms that more people wanted to see them. The same effect is amplifying angry rhetoric from all over the map about what comes next. Leaders on the left are condemning violence, while a handful of largely unknown users make jokes, which is despicable. Some of the far right are calling for civil war, right? Yeah. Who said that in the UK recently? Oh yeah, of course, Elon Musk. While other conservatives are mourning colleagues or friends, which is understandable. But it's the same game. It's the same game. Lastly, I want to share this article about the consequences that misinformation can have on people's lives. Innocent people that literally had nothing to do with anything, as is the case here. Apparently, this guy somehow was identified as a potential suspect, which is crazy. So according to CBS News, the title of the article is "I Feel Violated: How a Toronto Retiree Was Falsely Accused of Being the Charlie Kirk Shooter." A 77-year-old's name and photo shared by an account impersonating a Fox News channel of a retired banker living in Toronto found himself unwillingly thrust into the center of a political firestorm for being falsely linked to the shooting of Charlie Kirk on Wednesday. He had no idea what was happening until he got a panicked phone call around 6 p.m. while he was taking a nap. It was his daughter instructing him to delete his social media because his name and photo were being spread online by an account claiming he was the suspect in the shooting. And the problem is that this guy has never set foot in Utah. I mean, wow. And the article goes into the details in terms of how it all started. And again, I mean, this is just an example. But more importantly, AI chatbots, of course, they feed on all of this data. And in fact, CBS News, kudos to them, actually published a whole report that talks about how AI fuels false claims after Charlie Kirk's death, CBS News analysis reveals. The false claims, conspiracy theories, and posts naming people with no connection to the incident, like the example that I've just shared with you, spread rapidly across social media in the aftermath of the killing of Charlie Kirk. CBS News identified 10 posts by Grok, X's AI chatbot, that misidentified the suspect before his identity, now known to be Southern Utah resident Tyler Robinson. And that was released. I mean, Grok basically was spreading misinformation about a suspect that just basically is not the right suspect, that was not even caught, right? And Grok eventually generated a response saying that it had incorrectly identified the suspect, but by then, obviously, as is the case with every misinformation post, the post featuring the wrong person's face and name were already circulating across X. The chatbot also generated altered enhancements of photos released by the FBI. One such photo was reposted by the Washington County Sheriff's Office in Utah, which later posted an update saying, "This appears to be an AI-enhanced photo that distorted the clothing and facial features." I mean, again, I just never understood why police and, some of you follow me for a long time know that I just question the decision making here in terms of, police departments or businesses or organizations basically trusting AI in this way that they just automatically start releasing whatever garbage that AI generates. I mean, it's truly astonishing. It just shows that we have people in power that haven't got a clue how AI works. And there we go. That's the result of that. This is why I keep on going on about that. If you want to deploy AI in your business or organization, please understand how it works before you start doing stupid mistakes like this that have serious consequences. But carry on with this article. One AI-enhanced image portrayed a man appearing much older than Robinson, who is actually 22. An AI-generated video that smoothed out the suspect's features and jumbled his shirt's design was also posted by an ex-user with more than 2 million followers and was reposted thousands of times. On Friday morning, after Utah Government Spencer Cox announced that the suspect was in custody, Grok's replies to ex-users' inquiries about him were contradictory. One Grok post said Robinson was a registered Republican, while others reported that he was a non-partisan voter. Voter registration records indicate Robinson is not affiliated with a political party. So again, at the time of the recording of this video, we don't know what his political motives are. But again, this is one of the reasons, in fact, we had this editorial situation on the podcast, because I wanted to record this fairly soon after the assassination, because, like all of these articles that I'm sharing with you, literally that just happened within, 24 to 48 hours after the assassination. So I already had a lot of this information. Everything was just literally just happening right in front of us. And I wanted to talk about it and report it as soon as I possibly could. But by the same time, I felt, okay, no, let's wait, because the level of AI generated misinformation right now, which is a new thing that did not exist, by the way, at this level back in 2016. And I always remind people that Cambridge Analytica did not need major, complicated, expensive AI algorithms to cause the havoc that they created. And I always remind people, you do not need a big AI to cause havoc. But now we have very powerful AI tools that cause this kind of havoc, and we've seen it. And this is just literally an example. There's plenty of articles out there. And again, my question is, who benefits from this? I want you to think about that. Now, with all the clips that I've just shared with you from my guests, the common narrative is this. It's all about riling you up. It's all about pushing your emotional buttons. And of course, when people get emotional, they don't really think straight. They do silly things without even realizing it. And this is all by design. This is what I'm trying to say here, because sometimes people say, hey, like if you fall for that misinformation, you're stupid, whatever. This has nothing to do with stupidity. It's manipulation. Like I said to you before, and I say this to a lot of people that I know because I give presentations at schools, events, etc. And I tell people, I don't really care who you are. When we put the right algorithms together with the right psychographic metrics, we can control your mind and control your decision making, and you would not even know it. I don't care what kind of genius you are. You could be the smartest man in the world or woman in the world. It makes no difference. We can manipulate you. Hence, I always say we need to regulate. This is why I've been screaming and shouting about since 2014 that we need to regulate AI models and AI companies and social media companies. There's a reason why, as Pat DeBrun from Amnesty International highlighted in that episode as well, that they have really, really powerful and very skillful lobbyists that basically push for not just not to regulate them, but to deregulate even further. They're literally going after your human rights of privacy, which they've already destroyed, but also copyright, which is basically your human right of ownership of your intellectual property, the stuff that you create. Some people, I always find it astonishing that I see people complain about, I agree, I don't want this copyright stuff. Yeah, it's to protect your right of ownership. So whatever you create or whatever it is that you own, it's protected. So if you want to give that away, well, guess what? You have no privacy, you have no human rights, you have no ownership. So basically, you've got nothing. Right? So these guys have everything and you have nothing. Is that what you want? But this is where we're heading. This is where we're heading. And this is what I highlighted in my, I didn't even realize that it's a year basically since I published that video about the AI dystopia, that we're not moving into any AI utopia, where I made that very specific point that AI right now is by design destroying humanity. And this is why I'm very angry about that, because I promote AI. I'm an AI entrepreneur. Some people try to tell me, oh, you're an anti-AI Luddite. I'm like, yeah, look me up, mate. Yeah, I've been building these things since probably before you were born. All right. I'm a huge advocate for AI. But for me, AI is a tool that absolutely can change humanity to the better. In fact, I discovered AI in the 90s because in the 90s, they used data mining techniques to decode the human genome. That was such a revolutionary scientific development that changed science, biotech forever. We've got better medicine, vaccines, understanding of disease because of that one major moment. This is what AI can do. AI can absolutely bring brilliant things to humanity. This is what Dr. Jeffrey Funk and I were talking about in the last episode in terms of the power of AI and innovation, how amazing it is. But this is not what we're seeing here. This is not, the LLMs aren't the so-called AI or AGI or that bullshit. That all nonsense. But they're pushing it because it serves that very problem that I've just highlighted on this episode. And I just want you to think about that. This is really my message. Don't allow them. Don't allow these algorithms to manipulate your mind in this way. Always step back. You see something that is riling you up or something that is kind of really pushing your buttons. Just take a breather, step back and remind yourself, maybe watch this episode again and just remind yourself that this is all by design. It's an algorithm that is designed to rile you up because these platforms and these people want you to rile up because this is how they make money. While you're stressing yourself, getting all angry, probably breaking up with your family or whatever, well, you're not actually benefiting, but they're benefiting. Think about that. Think about that. This is why I felt that I had to make this episode as an emergency, because I feel that this is, everything that we talked about for the past year literally has been proven right in front of us. And it's horrible. And this is what I want to do, is to encourage you to think about these things, because it's our collective as people will drive change. People weren't happy with Tesla. Look what's happening to Tesla. If enough people around the world stand up and say, you know what, we're not going to be manipulated in this way anymore. Stop using social media. I know it's a tough ask. Or go to your politicians, go to your local politicians and say, look, this is unacceptable. Frankly, whether you support Charlie Kirk or not, are you happy with the idea that people are just monetizing from his assassination? Ask yourself that question. And if you're a supporter of Charlie Kirk, well, guess what? Go to your politician and say, hey, how can we allow people monetize from this horrific event? This is the point I'm trying to make. And this is what we absolutely need to do collectively. And this is the job of what I'm trying to do here, to inform you and show you the reality so that then you know what to do afterwards. So that's really my message. There's nothing else for me to say other than just stay safe out there. Please stop being divided. You don't need to be divided. This is all theater. And unfortunately, with the consequences that we see right in front of us here, this is absolutely horrible. And it's sad for humanity. That's all I can say. Whilst other people, well, they don't care. So long as they make money, they're laughing all the way to the bank, regardless of who's being harmed, who's being assassinated. Apparently, that means nothing to them. Welcome to 2025, my friends. And on that note, please think about that and stay safe. And tune in on September 22nd with my conversation with this brilliant author. You do not want to miss that because, my goodness, he's revealing some serious issues with the system that we have today. And again, it is the people at the top who are the problem, yet again. So, my friends, much love. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.